My talk today is called The Power of Prose, a case study of a high impact writing classroom. And it's about class that I created with the money that I got from a Connected Learning Award. And the award is from the class I taught in spring 2019, I think, called, the class was Rad Women in the Global South, and my students and I created a zine called Badass Women in the Pacific Northwest. Anyway, so today's talk, I'm going to talk about the class, which was, I got my PhD in sociology in 2000, so I've had it for over 20 years, and this class that I taught in the spring was the most fun I've ever had with the class. And I say that a lot, but this time I really meant it. And there were 24 students in the class, and we all lived happily ever after. It could have not gone that way. It just, things can go sideways pretty quickly. The class was called The Power of Feminist Writing, and with the money from the award, I brought in authors from Seattle and beyond, since we could do it through Zoom. And the class, I'm going to talk about the class, the portfolio-based assignments, and what was a very high impact result for all of us, including some of the guests. Okay, we got a lot of support for the class from the beginning. I'm sure a lot of you know Maria Lamarca Anderson, who's our communications guru, and she allowed one of the students writers to write a story about the class on the homepage in the before the class even started. So when all the students met, we all already felt really invested in it. It was just it created community even before we started. So the class itself is The Power of Feminist Writing, and basically it was part analyzing different texts in different genres, and then part hands-on workshop, and the workshops were led by all the different types of writers and members of the feminist publishing community. I brought some editors and things like that. They weren't all just writers. And then the basic premise of the class is that any text is feminist if it was telling a hidden or a minoritized history, and they more so if the author themselves is a member of a BIPOC or queer and trans community. So I worked very hard for all of the guests to be BIPOC, queer or queer and trans, and all the readings assigned as well. So it was a really, the readings were fantastic on top of all the interaction we had with all of the guests and each other. So these are all the guests that the award paid for, and I absolutely could not have done it without them. And one of the really upsides of it is the guests had, many of them, their speaking fees are significantly higher than what I was able to pay them, despite the fact that I had money. One author generally charges $3,000, and I was able to give her $500, and she was saying she would come back next time. So just being able to pay them anything, and then we gave them this great experience. A lot of them said they'd come do it again for free, which I will have to take them up on, because I doubt I'll have the money again. But so we had Claudia Castro Luna, who has become a friend of UWB, and she's Salvadoran and was a Washington State Poet Laureate. And our students read Killing Marias, which is a collection of poems about the femicide in Juarez. And it was an amazing day. Sarah Cannon, she's a local author, and she came and did a workshop about writing memoirs. And two queercore punk rockers. They're based in Portland, and they came in through Zoom and talked to the students about the Riot Girl zine movement from the 90s. So a graduate student who's an editorial assistant for one of the feminist journals that started from the National Women's Studies Association, and she talked about the whole process of getting an academic journal article published. And I had that specifically because this was an upper division class, graduating seniors, and I knew some of them I would assume some of them would want to go on into academia, which I was right about that. Sondra Segundo, who is a Haida singer, and she wrote a children's book, and she came in and talk to the kids, the students about writing kids books, and we actually did art with her, and she brought her drum, and it was just an incredibly therapeutic session among everything else. And I had the owner of the Never Ending Bookshop in Edmond. She did a Zoom session with us and just talked to us about, you know, the ins and outs of owning an independent bookshop these days. Laurie Frankel, who's one of my all-time favorite novelists, and when I first read the book, This Is How It Always Is, I, you know, thought to myself, I can't wait to have the excuse to teach this book, but I generally don't teach classes that have anything to do with the US, and so I don't, or novels really. So I didn't get to teach it for a long time. And then when I found out she was local and was able to bring her, and she said yes, it was just, I was so ecstatic. And there were many of these case times that I had different colleagues who knew knew of these different authors, and I brought them in as well, just because we were all very excited. Deborah Hathaway, I suspect a lot of you know her. She's a professor here, and she came and did a workshop with the students on how to write theater, which was amazing. And then I had somebody from the Feminist Press, which is the oldest feminist publishing house. She was the first guest. She was in Korea, and so she zoomed in, obviously, but a lot of the students are, I mean, it's not just their age, but definitely because they're young, have no sense of what it means that there used to be no feminist press or no feminist publishing at all. So her talk was really important from that perspective. And then Ijeoma Oluo, which I suspect a lot of you know who she is. Whoops, I just turned this to a compass. So she came to class as well, thanks to Maria Anderson. She made that happen. And Roxy Saul, who is the digital editor for Ms., she worked with the students on how to write basically what she calls movement journalism. And then Akshara Balakrishnan, who was talked to the students about activist writing. So there were just every different genre that I could fit into a quarter, and the different students all had different reasons that there were different ones they wanted to just jump all over. So there was two main assignments. One were these reflective journals, basically writing about how the texts that we read were feminist, and I gave them different prompts. And then these big writing portfolios that I worked with them to just pick frame it however they wanted to frame it based on where they were going next. And they had to write drafts of these different, they had to write 3 different genre drafts. The ones in red, we had worked on them in class. So with the workshops, and then they had to revise them, choose 3 that they would revise and make it, you know, more beautiful. And so like in the guidelines, I said, if you're thinking about going for a PhD, you should do the academic writing one. If you're thinking about an MFA, I would do the theater one, or whatever. If you are doing this just for your kids someday, just do whatever makes you happy. Like it was totally up to them, and I spent time with them trying to pick what I thought was going to make most sense, but I really wanted them to have fun with it. And just so many students found their voices in a way that they had never found before, and didn't realize how absent they had been in texts before. And part of that was from the memoirs. I had a selection of memoirs for them to choose from, and the children's books really affected them a lot. We only read one, but the students who chose the children's book as the genre to write about, I just kept telling them, write what you would have wanted to read, because there was one cis male in the class, and he was is gay, and the rest of the class were women or trans, non-binary. And so the students in the class were not the ones represented in regular texts. And the more we studied, the more they realized how much they hadn't been talked to in the text, and they wanted to fix that in their writing. So by the end of the class, I had 2 students who had published, one as part of the activist writing. Leah, she worked for the Trevor Project, and so one of the prompt for the activist writing genre said, if you're working for somebody, contact them and see if they'll let you write something. So she did, and she wrote something, and now she's on their webpage. And then Maria told the students in the beginning of the class of the quarter, if they write something good enough, they could do a My Story piece. And only, I think 2 of them tried, or 3, I can't remember actually, but this student, Jessie Blair, wrote one that was spectacular, and theirs got published on the homepage as well. So that was super exciting. And then at the end of the year, over the summer, I ended up writing something for Ms. Magazine about the class, because we were all just buzzing about it for so long because of all the authors and the energy that in the room. We sat in a circle and everything. And Roe got overturned the memo leaked in the course of it. The Buffalo shootings happened. There was just so much violence and trauma, but we kept coming back into the class and having each other. And it was the type of class that students would called me and said, I'm so sorry, I can't make it to class today. I'm so upset. I'm not going to see everybody, which that doesn't happen very much. So, and then I got to write this piece about it for Ms. So it was a very successful class, and I was so grateful for the money, and hopefully we'll do it again.
Are you ready for questions?
If you have them.
When will you offer this again, and what changes might you make when you offer it again?
Well, it's a class that it's a popular class to teach in IAS, not this specific one, but a class that's this small, and so we can't teach them as much as we want. I'll be happy if I can do it like every other year. So if I do, it'll be next year or something like that. I mean, I'll have to adjust it based on a budget, because I can't bring all these same authors again. A lot of them I gave $500 to. Some of them specifically said they would come back and do it for free, and so I'm not comfortable doing that, for even if they said they would do that, because it was a lot of work on their part. But it's so much work to create a new class, and there was so much logistics setting up all of those visits. I fortunately had been on leave the fall. When did I shot it in spring? Yeah, I actually organized most of it in the fall before. So all of the speakers were so grateful that I basically gave them 6 months notice. So the only thing that would probably change would be the speakers, but I'd like to bring as many of the same ones back as possible, because they were so fantastic. There was a lot of students in there who were on they're like 3rd or more class with me. And I had one student there who had done her discovery course, a freshman with me. Now was graduating. That was super fun.
Thank you, Julie. That was really amazing, and congratulations. It's definitely an example of connected learning excellence. And so my question was similar to Anne's, and it was around the component of how it was translated out of the classroom too, the in and out of classroom, and that experiential learning opportunity, and the difference that the speakers made and the funds for the speakers. So we're trying to think about what if we replicated this, like, are these types of classes, how can we continue and expand on this? So if you could maybe speak a little bit to the value, and then how we might replicate.
Oh my God, the speakers made such a difference. I mean, the class would not have been the same without them. The speakers was partially what got the students so invested in what was going on. I mean, I'm a perfectly good professor and all, but they could have taken me in any other time, like it was part of the way that the visits were structured with the speakers. I had the students post they posted questions on Canvas, and then I would look at them in advance, and then we did it like an interview, but I organized the questions so that it wasn't just a big free-for-all. And then, so I'd have them organized in a way, and I, ask the students, do you want to ask it, or do you want me to ask it, or whatever. So no, the speakers just it just elevated the level of commitment to the class that I've never seen before. I bring guests to a lot of my classes, but it's a lot different when they're sitting at a round table with you, for one thing, the way we had it set up literally as a round table. And when they're teaching you how to write poetry, I mean, they had a Washington State poet laureate sitting at the table saying, this is how I do it. Or that we had a memoirist in there. One of the jokes, one of our students said to her, how do you write about your mother without writing about your mother? Because the student wants to write a memoir and has a really not very pleasant relationship with their family. So all these speakers just elevated the level of commitment to the class. And when students had to miss, they would contact me and say that they were upset to miss the class, miss the other students, and miss the speaker. It was the whole package of people. And I'm also in touch with a lot of the speakers as peers, both through Instagram and in reality. And they were all really proud to be part of the class, and they know the work that has come out of it. And I shared the Ms. Magazine piece with them, and they were very happy to be part of that as well. So it's generative at many levels as well. So I really couldn't have imagined it to have gone so well. And a good idea doesn't always go well. We could have had, I don't know, especially given the trauma, the political world trauma, I mean, of the quarter. One of the things we joked about is the day that Claudia Castro Luna came in, and we were talking about femicide and Juarez, and her poems are just devastating. Each poem is about another murdered woman. It's a devastating collection, and it's why she wrote the poems. But we were joking at the end, like, how do you end up spending 2 hours talking about femicide and leaving feeling happy? And that's what the class did. It was like it allowed the students to locate rage and then write about it and make all these connections. And it was a lot that was through the connections with the community writers.
Sounds like a very powerful experience.
Yeah, it was.
Well, Dr. Shayne, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. This was really interesting.
Thank you.